Hey guys, welcome back to the channel by Emwoo. I'm Emwoo, aka Marianne, and today we have episode 16 of the knitting podcast that we host here. On this channel, we talk about all things crafty, primarily knitting, and today we have episode 16 of the knitting podcast that we host here. This is a chatty space where I talk about my finished objects, works in progress, and new yarn acquisitions, cast-ons, all that stuff. So if this sounds like your jam, let's get started. I have 3 finished objects to share with you guys, 2 of which were casted on and finished off between the last podcast episode and today. And one was basically in the finished form in the last episode, so it shouldn't come as a surprise. I have 3-ish works in progress, and I have a fun knitting acquisition that's not yarn and it's related to drying and blocking, so I'll show that at the end. As usual, I'll talk about what I'm wearing today. So this is my Aosta summer top by the Knit Purl girl. I knit this last spring, so it's a year and a little bit old, and frankly I don't actually wear it as much as I would like to. It's a beautiful raglan textured shirt that has, I don't remember what the stitch is called, but it's like a 4-row repeat, fairly straightforward to memorize, but it looks super nice. It has this purl bump detailing on every 4th row or so. My version is knit in Sandisgarn Sunday held double in the color Acorn, and I believe Sophie, who's the designer, just released an update for this one. So when I knit this, it was still on version 1, and it was a really nice pattern. I don't remember having any issues with it. I think it was one of my first summer tops that I've ever made, and it went fairly smoothly, but she released an update, I want to say maybe last month or so, to increase the size range. So I think she added a few more smaller sizes and a few more larger sizes, and I don't know if she changed the raglan shaping or she added an update where you have an alternative to do compound raglan. So this one is just the traditional, where I believe the increases are just at a set frequency, whereas the new one with compound raglan has alternating frequencies, so that it's a little bit more shaped, if that makes sense. I can't comment about the new one, but I suspect that it's only improved the pattern, and I had a really good time knitting this one on the old pattern, so I would still recommend it. Definitely check it out if it's interesting to you. I think she has a whole bunch in this style, where she has a chunky sweater, there's a baby version, stuff like that. This specific one is just the summer t-shirt version. Yeah, love this one. The yarn that I used for it, as I said, was the Sandisgarn Sunday held double, and it's held up really well. I don't actually wear it that much, so I don't know how it wears long term, but it basically looks new, and there's no pilling whatsoever. It has this really nice structure to it while being still really soft, and yeah, it's just a little too hot for summer. It's a really breezy day today, which is why I'm wearing it, but that's all I have to say with this one. Love this one. Definitely check it out. I also really love this brown color. It's not anything I own, and I should wear it more. Let's move into finished objects. The first one I have to share is one that was basically in its finished form in the last podcast episode. I think I was just on the sleeves, and there's not too much to do for the sleeves. It's basically a centimeter of stockinette and then the ribbing, but that is my Reveries Tee by Herb Garden Knitwear. So you guys have seen this one in the last 2 podcast episodes. I think I casted it on quite a while ago, and yeah, as I was just describing, it was basically finished. So here's the finished version. It's been blocked, and I can say that it is glorious. For a bit of a background on this one, I applied to do the test knit, I think in February, March, and it started around that similar time. The test knit's actually still ongoing. I think it's going until July 16th or something. So this pattern should be coming out soon-ish relative to when this video gets posted. And it's this beautiful, just circular yoke, fingering weight, silk garment that the key components to it is this beautiful 2x2 ribbing along the edges, as well as this little eyelet lace detailing. It's super simplistic, but also really elegant. And it's just the right amount of eye candy to be visually interesting without distracting. This is knit in Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, which is the recommended yarn. My color is Powder, which is this really pretty I want to say pink undertoned beige, and it knits into a glorious fabric. I love this fabric. I don't know if you can tell by the way it moves, but the drape on it is beautiful and it just feels really smooth, and it's such a lovely garment to wear. It's breathable, lightweight, but like everything you want, at least everything you want in my opinion in a summer fabric. My comment only about it is that I personally found Knitting for Olive, the pure silk version, a little hard to work with. One, it is splitty, but that wasn't the problem. I was just finding that it has a really high amount of friction. It has like a high amount of friction, but it's also really slippery at the same time. And so when you're knitting with it, it like slides around on your needles, but yet, at least for me on my tension finger, I was like having to hold it in a way where it was like really aggressively cutting into my finger. So I can only knit with the pure silk in small bursts. Otherwise, I get a lot of finger pain on my tension finger. But the fabric is 100% worth it. I definitely will use this yarn in the future. I'm actually working on another project, which I talked about briefly in the last one, which is the Melides dress, which we'll talk about more later on, which is also in the pure silk. And yeah, have been having to implement a lot of breaks and interchanging that project with another project so that I don't get finger fatigue. I evidently am still using it because I adore this fabric. What else to say about this pattern? So this pattern comes in 18 sizes. The finished bust circumference ranges from 75.5 centimeters to 163 centimeters. Recommended ease is 3 to 6 centimeters of positive ease. I believe for size 3 for me, I had exactly 6 centimeters of positive ease, which I thought was going to be too much for what I was envisioning, but it actually is the perfect amount. So I really like the way this fits, and I've worn this non-stop since I casted it off. It's just so lovely. It just wears so well, and I can't wait to wear this in like the really warm months. It's just great. I can't stop gushing about it because it's like such a lovely garment. It was super simple to knit up. The pattern was really well written. So definitely check it out when it comes out, and I hope that is soon because the test knit is ending soon. I have 2 other finished objects. I'll do the one that's like new but not really like pattern new, and then we'll end with the really weird one that I've knit up. So this next one is one that I've talked about a ton in the past. I just released my 2024 summer knitting plans and I've mentioned it there, but the pattern itself I've like talked about like endlessly over the last like year or so. It's because this is the first pattern that I've done a remake for that I can recall. At least first garment pattern that I've done a remake. I've done a whole bunch of like accessories multiple times, but that is the Summer Souffle by Laura Renrose. This specific version is the frillless version, and I'll talk about that in a second. But you've seen this a lot. This one is now my blue one. I have the original pink one that I've made right here. And so the original pattern, the like standout portion of it is it has this really beautiful frill along the yoke, and it's so feminine, it's so cute. It is a summer t-shirt by Laura Renrose, and it's part of the Soufflé collection. So she has a whole bunch with this like frill detailing. Another circular yoke, this one's DK weight. Her recommended yarn is Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino held double, and my version is actually made in the Katia Cotton Yak. This color is, I want to say copper or terracotta, something along those lines. I think at my local yarn store it was called terracotta, but it's this really beautiful like dusty pink. And the new version that I made is the exact same garment, exact same measurements in the color blue jeans, same yarn with no frill. So the reason why I wanted to make another one is because I adore this fabric and I adore the pattern. The pattern's super lovely to knit up. It's a circular yoke, so you just cast on at the collar and you don't have to do basically any purling outside of the short rows. And I love that the sleeves are form-fitting, and I think it's just the right amount of boxiness, and plus because it's DK weight, it knits up really quickly. It's such a simple garment, but I really, really, really like it. And I knew when I had finished making this one that I wanted to make a version without the frill, because as much as I love the frill and I love the way that this shirt looks, because the frill goes all the way around the yoke and even on top of the shoulders, when you want to wear this garment underneath a cardigan or something, you get this like lump on each side, which is not the end of the world, but I get cold quite frequently. So not having the option to wear a cardigan without that lump was really appealing to me. And so I made a version in this really lovely blue. It's not quite like a cobalt blue. It's a little bit more muted than that, but it's still really lovely. I really like these colors. So same great knitting experience. Nothing to really add in terms of like the pattern. The pattern's great. Everything was down to a T. I quickly will mention that it has 2 gauges, and so despite it saying 12 sizes, it actually kind of has 24 sizes. You can either do a 20 stitch per 10 centimeters or 22 stitches per 20 centimeters. I'm not sure what I had. Because this was the same yarn and the same pattern, I just used the same needle size, and I can't remember. I don't know if it's on my Ravelry page. If it isn't, maybe I'll add it in, but this Katia cotton yak is yak wool cotton. And I want to say it's like 60% cotton and then 40% the animal fiber. And it's really, really nice to work with. It's super stretchy, but also very like structured because of the cotton. Love this one so much. And I really love the color. So yeah, I used every last centimeter of the yarn that I had. I thought I was going to get away with doing like a frill maybe, but once I got to the end, I realized I didn't have enough yarn. So maybe my tension, oop, sneak peek of the next one. Maybe my tension changed, but that's okay. Really like this both. This one just got off the blocking mats. So I have the total finished objects with the end weaved, been blocked to share with you guys. Oh, not that it's super important, but I'll quickly mention why I casted this on. So this was kind of like a spontaneous cast on for me because I had just finished the Reveries Tee and I was working on my Melides dress, which is all fingering weight pure silk. And as I was just describing, that's very hard on my hands. So I wanted something DK weight, preferably with a little bit of non-silk animal fiber in it. And so this one was like fairly straightforward in my mind because I've made it before and it was going to be like a mindless knit, and so I casted this off. And it was super fast. I think I finished this in like a week or so of like on-off knitting. But yeah, it's beautiful. Would recommend this. And I think I mentioned already, but Laura Renrose has a whole bunch in this Soufflé like collection. So if you don't want to do like a t-shirt version, she has like a mohair blouse version. She has a chunky cardigan. I think she also even has like a junior version if you want to make like a child size one. So there's probably something for everyone in her collection. Love this. If there's another color that I like in this Katia cotton yak, I probably will make another one. Last finished object is probably the most chaotic finished object I've ever made, and it's because I purely whipped this out of my bum. I had this vision in my mind to make Jubie a dog hat or a dog snood a while ago. For those of you who don't know, Jubie is my standard poodle, and we keep her in like a fairly traditional cut, not the continental with the like pom-poms on the bum and stuff, but she definitely has like the poodle poof and the poodle fluffy ears. She currently is sporting the Miami cut, if any of you guys know what that is, which is where she has the pom-poms on the ankles. Anyways, my point is she has a fluffy head with fluffy ears, and when it rains, she gets this like really sad looking like slop on her head because the wetness kind of like weighs her hair down. So to combat that, I was thinking maybe if I like knit her a little hat or like a snood, we could like minimize the amount of rain that landed on her head. Also, because when it's like her ears are fairly long, when she's like sniffing in the grass, her ears get dragged along in the grass, and that's also not very fun. And some people will be like, oh, she's a dog, just let her be a dog. Yeah, but you don't have to like brush the ears or brush the poof, and it's just not fun for everyone. So I was like, okay, we'll do a dog snood, dog hood. Instead of going to Ravelry and looking for a project, because there's probably tons on there, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna make one. And it turned into this, which is this really weird like looking, I don't even know how to describe it. What shape is this? Like it's kind of like a tunnel, but like not. If I zoom in closer, you can see the atrocity of the knitting that I've done. Basically, I casted it on. I didn't make a gauge swatch. I didn't do any measurements. I was just going based off vibes. And so I casted it on and I was like, okay, it kind of looks like it fits over her head. And so I started knitting and I was like, oh shoot, like like chin area is like a lot smaller than the top of her poof. And so I was like, I massively need to like knit the top part while keeping the bottom part short. So there's like a lot of weird German short row shaping in here with increasing and decreasing at like uncomprehendable moments. And this is my finished object. The like plot thickens because I finished it and I thought it worked really well. Like I posted a photo on Instagram of her wearing it and I was like, oh my God, it fits really well. That day was raining really hard, and because I didn't block it, she went out in the rain and it just got drenched, and it kind of like pseudo blocked itself outside, and so it stretched out, and by the time she got back, she was just this like sad looking dog with this sad looking hat, and it was hilarious but also very sad. So I'm not even gonna bother explaining what I tried to do because I frankly don't really know. After that, I've decided I'm gonna make her a new one. I'm gonna use the same yarn because I do like this yarn combination. This is the Knit Picks Stroll Sport without the dye, so the bare version, held with a strand of, I wanna say it's like Rico Designs in the Make It Tweed, which is this really fun like lace tweedy thread. It's so much fun. I found a pattern on Ravelry after this fiasco called the Doggo Hood Formula by Jessie Wibe, I believe. And it's kind of like a made to measure dog hat where you can input your gauge and your dog's head circumference and it spits out a pattern. So we're gonna try that one moving forward. In the time being, this kind of works. Like if I put it on her and I like clip up the back, because this back part has stretched out a lot, it like pseudo works. So we're gonna use this for the time being until I get that next one cast on. But yeah, so this is my really weird finished object of a dog hood. Jubie is such a great sport. I'm very thankful that we worked with her a lot growing up to like be okay with us handling her and putting like hats and clothes and stuff on her. So very thankful for her personality. But yeah, this is probably a flop, but we're here to share all of the strangeness that goes on in my knitting adventure. So yeah, this is her weird Jubie Snood that I would not recommend. Don't do this. And if you do, you're probably like, be smarter about it and like actually plan it out. Don't just cast on and just like have the feelings of how it's gonna go. I will say it was a lot of fun despite it being like really chaotic. It was fun to just like have all this chaotic energy get like casted into like a project. But yeah, if I had put in the tiniest bit of planning, it probably would have ended a lot better. So those are all the finished objects I have to share with you guys. Let's move into whips. We'll start with the oldest one first. This one hasn't made too much progress since the last time I shared it, and that is my Stick Season Sweater by Rebecca Clow, the Stickless version. I don't know how long I've been working on this, but it's been in a little bit of a hiatus for the last couple weeks. I want to say the last time in the podcast, I had just finished the body, and based off what you can see here, I've made marginally more progress. I put the sleeve stitches on a needle and I've made like, what's that? Maybe like 3 inches of progress, but then kind of have abandoned it since then. This is a really lovely DK weight sweater that Rebecca Clow released back in November. Its key features is this really chunky 2x2 collar with kind of this textured stitch on the yoke, and this really nice like ribbing detailing along the back and underneath the underarm. You can kind of see it there. I saw this sweater and I knew I wanted to do it. It's a kind of like a smaller drop shoulder. It has a drop shoulder, but it's like not super aggressive. So it's kind of form-fitting in the nicest way. And she made a version in this exact yarn combo and shared it on her podcast, and I was like, I really love that green. So I am now making myself one. This is made in Drops Alpaca in grass green, held with a strand of Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the color Pea Shoots, I think is what it's called. And it's this really nice, like vibrant green with a little bit of yellow intertwined. It's such a fun color. I think it will be so nice for the fall and the winter, and it's so soft. I haven't worked with a lot of alpaca, but when I casted this on, I forgot how like soft and drapey it is. I'm really excited to block this. I did a chunky 2x2 ribbing the same way as the pattern. I think mine's like a centimeter shorter because I didn't want it to be like too close to the neck. It's still fairly close, but not as like high up. And I'm really excited to work on it. It's now that it's like super hot and very clearly summer, the motivation to work on like a mohair sweater like this is like dwindling a little bit, but I will get this done eventually. I think in my 2024 summer knitting plans, I talked about how I want to get all my whips done before the next season. So we'll try to prioritize this at some point. I think I'm really working on towards all of my t-shirts right now because it's like really warm and I just want to wear like t-shirts and not get stuck on Sleeve Island. This is where this is sitting right now, which is clearly Sleeve Island. And now that it's in like its full sweater version, basically, I'm having like a hard time just throwing it around in a bag and just bringing it around the house. So that's also part of the reason why it's been a little bit slower, but love this sweater. I have plans to make another one in the future in a black, just because I don't have a black fuzzy sweater, which I think will be really nice. And yeah, I really like the structure of this drop shoulder. Don't be surprised if you see this pattern in the future a lot. Let's talk about the newer projects. So this one's really exciting because in the last podcast episode, I had the yarn and I was talking about it. I can now say that I've made progress and I have something to share, and that is the project in here, which is my Melides dress. So for those of you who don't know what the Melides dress is, it is a beautiful silk dress that VertKnit, her name is VertKnit on Instagram, but the actual designer's name is Inês, has designed. And I believe this came out last year, maybe the year before. And it's a custom made tailor to fit dress. The whole purpose of it is to have zero ease from top to bottom. And it's just so stunning. It's reversible, so it has a V-neck with buttons along the front. And the reverse of it is like a square neck detail. And it screams summer to me. I fell in love with it the moment I saw it when it first came out, or at least the first time that I saw it. But it's always been very daunting to me because I've never really wanted to do a straight stockinette knit summer dress in fingering weight. And then on top of that, it's not even like in the round, it's back and forth because it's completely flat the whole way down. So I've been holding off on it. Sherry from Good Knit did a version a couple months ago, which like really inspired me to like think about it a little bit more. Right around the same time, Inês put out a test call to update this pattern because she's increasing the size range to it and just kind of like clarifying some written details in it, making sure that everything flows a little bit better. I applied for it because I was just like, now or never, you know, like if I get this, maybe this is a sign that like I should make this dress. And I am so thankful to say that I got it, and I am making it in this beautiful green color. So this is Olive from Knitting for Olive in the pure silk. I adore this color. I think it's so fun. It should be a really versatile dress in the summer. I toyed with making like a bright red one, but I wasn't sure if I was going to wear that as much. And I did think about blue, but I have a lot of like blue yarn planned for the future. So I was like, maybe green, although I also have a lot of green stuff. So without further ado, I'll show you the progress. So this is where she's sitting right now. It's kind of hard to show because she's kind of like a little crinkly from being worked on, but I basically have the top bodice and I've started working on like the under waist section. I just finished the mid portion under the waist and I'm about to start the lower skirt, and it's actually going very smoothly, all things considered. You think it's a crazy amount of work, and it is, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to mislead you and say that it's easy, but once you get going, it's actually a lot less daunting than you originally think. So how this works is that there's a lot of techniques that you use for this, but it's all written out in the pattern really well, and Inês is super approachable when you have questions, even outside of like the test knit. I've heard about situations where you just message her and she's like always willing to help, and she has a lot of like different resources in the pattern to help explain things. But the basic structure of this dress is that you cast on at the waist using a provisional cast on, and then you knit upwards towards the straps. And at that same time, you're shaping the front and the back. Once you finish the straps, which as you can see with all of my like safety pins, I haven't sewn them together yet because I wanted to make sure that the whole dress hits all the spots that I want with all the weight once it's done before I finalize where I want to like, or how long I want the straps to be. Once you finish the bodice, you pick up your provisional cast on edge where at the middle, and then you start working down for the length of the skirt. All in all, it's a lot to think about, but there's nothing inherently difficult. So it's just more so that you need to be good at keeping track of what at what time, and you definitely have to plan each section out before you knit it, because it's like custom made to fit your specific sizes. You have to be cognizant of like making sure the measurements match what you think it's gonna be and it like logically makes sense. So I wouldn't recommend this to be, I'm sorry, the like trackpad on my Mac is like blinding me, so I'm gonna like kind of like block that. So what was I talking about? So yeah, you have to like be very cognizant of each portion. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for like a beginner who wants to make a dress, because while nothing in the pattern is like super advanced, like if you're a adventurous beginner, you could definitely do a provisional cast on or try it out. I think the helpful thing is to have a little bit of garment making experience or knitting intuition, because there's certain moments where there might be a translation block for what's written and how you interpret it in your head. Not that it's written poorly in the pattern, it's just that like how she describes it might not exactly click the way that you like understand it immediately. And so using what she's written and what you think is supposed to happen and putting those two together to like actually make the garment is at least my experience. So it's not hard, but it's definitely mentally very engaging, and it's not something that I can just like sit and watch TV and do. I need to like concentrate on it. Overall, it's been fairly straightforward. It moves a lot quicker than you think, because there's so many moving parts. You always want to get to the next part, and you're always moving forward into like, okay, I'm finished this section, what do I have to do next? I'm thinking about this thing, I have to consider that thing. And so it moves fairly quickly, and I honestly thought this was gonna be like kind of too much to handle for like the test knit time frame. We have until September, and it started, I want to say, mid-May, but I've hit like the lower bodice, or sorry, the lowest skirt section now, and it should be fairly straightforward moving forward. It's just a matter of doing increases every so often now until I hit the length that I want, and it's just like trying it on. So I cannot say enough good things about this. If you want to do the pattern, you can definitely knit it up as is right now. The pattern update will be going to everybody who purchased the pattern previously. Alternatively, you can wait until the pattern gets updated and gets released later on this year. But having a great time, have a lot of incredible things to say about this pattern. You can tell how much care and love Inês has put into it. And it's been such a great time. I'm so excited to have this and wear this in Japan. I think it will be so nice. Knowing that this silk blocks out into what the Reveries Tee's fabric is makes me like so giddy about it, because I think it's gonna be a beautiful dress to wear, and it's gonna be so comfortable, and it's gonna look so good because it like is made to measure. So that's pretty much like all I have to say about this. I guess specific things for the pattern, if this is something you want to do. Hitting gauge is vital. I think honestly the biggest hurdle for this pattern is the setup, because you have to be pretty meticulous in terms of taking all the measurements. There's a lot of measurements. And it's not just a straightforward like what's your bust size and then picking one, because it has zero ease and it's made to fit. You really have to make sure your measurements are what you think are like accurate. You don't want to like make them too tight so that's like underestimating. You don't want to make them too large so that it's overestimating. I found personally having someone help you take measurements really helped. I did them myself, and then I had my husband help me take them as well. And I kind of cross compared to see like where it was and like which one would be more accurate. And then swatching. You have to swatch. This is not something you can just like, I'm just gonna try it out for fun. Like swatching is critical to getting a dress that fits. She has adjustments for row gauge. So if you don't hit row gauge, that's fine, but you need to hit the 26 stitches. Is it 26, 25? I don't remember off the top of my head, but you really need to hit that like recommended gauge using whatever needles you can. In the last podcast episode, I was toying between which type of needle I wanted to use. I ended up going with my usual bamboo. I did think about using metal, but I thought that the metal would be a little too slippery for the silk for my personal experience. So I stuck with my bamboo needles. I did a swatch in 2.75 millimeter needles, and then I did a swatch with the recommended 3 millimeter needles. And I got really unlucky and was smack dab in the middle. So I think I was hitting like, if let's say for example, the recommended stitch gauge was like 25, I was hitting 24 on the larger ones, but I was hitting like 26 on the smaller ones. Is that right? Something like that. I was like, what I needed was like right between the two needle sizes that I ended up using. So based off of Inês's recommendation, I ended up using the smaller needle size because she says pure silk will stretch to accommodate, whereas if you have something too big, you'll have something that's a little too drapey. So I'm using 2.75 millimeter needles. So far it's been going really well. Every time I've tried it on, it's like ever so slightly, maybe like just fitting. I think once it's blocked, I could stretch it out the tiniest bit so that it is fitting really nicely. And I think Sherry from Good Knits had the same issue. So while I stress that hitting gauge is critical, it's also very possible that you won't be able to hit the exact number. But I guess the point is you have to try your best, and you really have to think about how you want to move forward, knowing how the fabric is going to work and the overall structure of your dress. Obviously, the longer the dress, the more fabric there will be, and that will also dictate how your like garment will stretch and wear versus if you're doing a shorter one. Personally, I'm doing like a midi length, so it's going to be fairly long, but I think if you were to do like one that ended at the knee or a little shorter, you'd have different things to accommodate because you have less fabric on like the straps, for example. So yeah, really like how it's working out so far. Inês has been super nice to work with. I really like how she does her test knits in Slack. I've tried a whole bunch of test knits in the past now. They range from having Instagram groups to Slack groups to just working Google Docs or whatnot. I personally, so far, like the Slack one's the best. I think it's the easiest way to sort information and find information, but that's just my personal thoughts. I think I'm very biased because I just like Slack in general. But yeah, stay tuned for the update on this one. Progress is being made. I'm really excited to see how it moves forward over the next couple months, and I kind of have a soft deadline for myself to finish this in August because I'll be away for most of September. Last comment I want to say about this is that surprisingly, despite it being like a full-length dress, it doesn't use that much yarn. I think Inês mentioned that it's like comparable to like a oversized cardigan, which is a little weird to think about. Obviously, a longer dress will require a little bit more yarn, but the number of skeins that I purchased for this is only 6. It's a lot less daunting than you think. If it's definitely something you want to knit up, this is your sign to go and consider it, because it's, in my opinion, even though I'm not done, it's been such a fun experience, and I think it will be totally worth it. Okay, that was very rambly. I hope I got all of my thoughts out. I apologize if I didn't, but that is my primary whip right now. I do have this sweater that I showed earlier, but it's like a little bit of a back burner project. And ever since I casted off the Summer Souffle by Laura Renrose, I've kind of been in this section where I'm like, okay, now that my DK weight summer pattern is finished, I need another like wool or alpaca based project so that my fingers don't go insane from knitting pure silk like endlessly. So while this isn't a new cast on, I'm definitely starting a new project, which is a different kind of exciting. I've teased about this one a lot in the past, and I'm definitely in the early like days of it, but I've officially started the process of kind of designing my own shirt. I am not designing for a pattern. This is purely just like the experience and testing it out. And so when I showed my Knit City haul, I talked about this yarn that I got, which is this beautiful like sport weight, I think it's superwash merino with silk from a local hand dyer. And at Knit City, she had a poppy tee made in that yarn that had this most beautiful drape. So I purchased 3 skeins of that, and I'm officially in the process of starting that self-drafted tee. This is the swatch that I've made so far. You can see it has this beautiful off-white color with some speckles. The speckles are like mostly brown, but there's a little bit of like orange and blue and pink. It's like really cute and fun and subtle, which is what I really like about it. And you can see that the drape on it's nice. and the openness of this gauge swatch is really nice. This was done on, I want to say 3.25 millimeters, and it's a sport weight yarn. I have all of the cakes wound up in this Hide and Hammer bag, which was an experience in and of itself because the silk in it makes it super slippery, and I kept getting tangled, and I think my like ball winder is like uneven, and so it kept like catching, and it took me like honestly 2 hours to wind up 3 skeins, which is kind of insane. But I've started doing the number measurements. I measured a t-shirt that I really liked that I wanted to use as like a jumping off point into how I wanted to shape this t-shirt that's in my head. And I've started doing a little bit of the math crunching. So I have nothing to show you like physically right now, but it's been an interesting experience. Designing a t-shirt is no joke because I am designing this for my size only right now. And it's a lot of math and a lot of thinking and a lot of foresight. And I'm definitely one of those people that is a little nervous to cast on if I don't really know exactly where I'm going, because I don't want to get to like a certain point where I've done a lot of knitting and it turns out I made a fundamental like error at the beginning and have to frog everything. I'm realizing now that might just be part of the experience. If that happens, that's just, I'm gonna have to deal with it. Obviously I can try my best to avoid it, but like I think frogging is just part of the design experience that I'm just gonna have to accept. I don't really like frogging, but it's okay. So my plans for this is hopefully a set-in sleeved t-shirt with relatively form-fitting but long sleeves and maybe like a rounded hem on the edge. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do on the bottom yet, but that's the general vision. Oh, and like kind of a scoop neck. That's kind of what I'm going for in all stockinette. We'll see how much I get through. Like I said, haven't casted it on, but I'm doing the math right now and I'm going on holiday for the next couple days. So this is going to be hopefully my primary project. I'm very cognizant of the fact that I don't want to put a timeline pressure on me to finish this by X time, because I definitely need to be in a certain mindset to be doing more like of the math when it comes to designing. That said, I think it'll be fun to do it as like a holiday project where I don't have to think about work or anything else. So it can just be me, my computer, and my knitting. So I'm really excited about it. I hope I have something to show you guys next time. I've decided that I really like the way that the swatch looks. So I'm gonna go with the needle size on this one right now. And seeing this little swatch in my hand is like really getting me excited because I think this shirt is going to be so lovely. It's like, it feels so nice. I can't even describe like how silky it is. And it just has the right amount of stretch. I think it'll be really nice for the summer. So yeah, that's a project that I'm embarking on, which is both very daunting and very exciting. I feel like I've been talking about like self-drafting for ages, and I have a lot of different ideas in my head. And I decided that if I don't just sit down and do it, I won't ever start. And so I'm starting with this one, and hopefully I don't hate it so much that I will never do it again, because I have a lot of yarn that was like purchased for self-draft in mind. I can always pivot it, but we'll see. That's that update. I have 2 more sections to talk about, which is the yarn update and the yarn inventory update, sorry, and the like little knitting acquisition that I bought that's not yarn specific. So very quickly about the yarn inventory update. I can't remember the last time that I did this. Like it was in the last podcast episode, but I don't remember the dates. So just quickly in terms of like where we started. Okay, actually we'll dial it back even further. For those of you who don't know, one of my 2024 knitting plans was to prioritize my personal yarn. I was really good for the first couple months and I got my stash down to 100 units, and a unit is just like any skein, cake, or ball of new yarn. Used yarn skeins didn't count and minis didn't count for me personally. And that's when I purchased a whole bunch of yarn. I got a bunch of yarn at local yarn store day from a couple stores, and I also went to Knit City, which brought things back up. So as of the last episode, I believe I had 187 units, which were quite above that 100 unit threshold. And this month we didn't have any come in and we had 8 units go out. So we're now at 179. I decided that while I still want to prioritize my stash, I'm not going to go on that getting it down to 100 before I'm allowed to buy more. I'm hoping to deter buying for the foreseeable future, but should I go to a fancy place, like when we're going up to the cottage for the next week, there's a local like alpaca farm that I might pick up a skein or two from, we'll see. I just don't want to have such a like black or white, yes or no relationship with buying or not. I think I need a healthier balance in terms of like restricting without being restrictive. I don't know if that's counterproductive, but that's what's going on in my head right now. So a pretty good month, or a pretty good like portion of time since last time. Nothing came in, which is great. The fun part is, so because I don't have any yarn acquisitions, it doesn't mean I haven't been buying knitting stuff. And I got this new update maybe 2 weeks ago, and I'm obsessed with it, so I really want to share it with you guys. It's like underneath here, so I'm like trying to get it without falling off of the stool. Basically, it's a sweater drying like thing. I don't know how to hold it. It's like fairly large, but I picked up this sweater drying like mesh shelf. It's like not very tall. It's only like, what is that, 6 inches or so? And to dry my sweaters and to do blocking on. So I know a lot of people like to do blocking on blocking mats, especially the one with the 1-inch grid, because you can block whatever garment to the exact shape and size and you can pin them down. However, I personally find that I didn't buy that stuff because I didn't want to spend the money on foam blocks. But then 2, I was always using like an old yoga mat that I had, but I find that knits took forever to dry because of the lack of air circulation, which always felt a little counterproductive because I know I need a block. But then the problem is that if I have a sweater that's like kind of damp for 3 days, that's like kind of raising signals about like potential mold growth or like just like an ecosystem that I don't really want to support. And so that's always been toying in the back of my mind, and it's one of the reasons why I never really washed my garments as much as I probably should have. I know you don't have to wash like this stuff, like your sweaters and whatnot, every time you wear them, but I was going on like a lot of wears for some of my summer stuff without blocking them or washing them because I just didn't want to deal with the whole situation of dealing with something that was taking too long to dry. So I was looking into alternatives, and to be totally transparent, when I block, I don't pin. I just kind of lay it flat, however shape that I can, and I leave it as it is. I'm not a really fussy blocker, so I thought it was a bigger incentive for me to buy something that increased airflow or air circulation to make things dry faster. So I picked up this. There's a whole bunch of versions of these on Amazon. This is the specific one from Oxo, I think is the company, OXO. And what I love about this one is that it's foldable. So you can fold these legs in and it hinges in the middle. I swear it's more elegant than when you're sitting down, but you can fold these legs in and hinge it in the middle, and so it's really nice to like tuck away into corners when you're not using it. And then when you want it, you just expand it and you pop out the legs. And it is a little flimsy, as you can see. It's just mesh, but in doing so, it increases the dry time of things significantly. I blocked a sweater not that long ago, and it was dry in less than 24 hours, albeit it was probably a little also nicer because I had the windows open and it wasn't very humid outside, but still, like, I think this is great. And then on top of this has little like nooks or like little indents here that you could, if you have multiple, you can stack them, and so you can dry multiple things at the same time. I think this is a game changer. I personally am obsessed. There is a little bit of a space limitation, so when you do dry things, you can't dry them with like the arms or the sleeves like spread out the way you might have over like a longer distance yoga mat. However, I think it's totally worth it for the drying time. That's like my biggest hindrance, and so this has made all the difference. I will link the Amazon link below where I got it from. This is the box, if that helps with anything. So as you can see here, it's for sweater drying, and this is what I've been talking about, where it says it's stackable, so you can put a whole bunch together, and it's foldable. So highly recommend. I adore this. I want to get another one, but for the time being, one is fine. Maybe when winter hits and I'm washing things more frequently, like winter accessories and stuff, I'll get it. because it's so nice to think to be able to stack them like this. And the reviews of this are great, even if it's not for like hand knit sweaters, just to dry sweaters, because you shouldn't really put those in the dryer and you can't like hang them to dry. Anyways, I've stopped talking about this rack. I am obsessed with it, but take that how you will. Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed this chatty episode. I've been having a wonderful time doing summer knits, even though I have a sweater in the works, and up until like 2 months ago I was knitting winter accessories. But needless to say, knitting is year-round for me. I don't really segregate like seasons that intently. I try to like go with the flow a little bit, but if I want to cast on a sweater, I will. And if I want to cast on a t-shirt in like the middle of winter, I will. I don't really hinder that. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, feel free to hit that subscribe button. And I hope you have a wonderful summer season. It's crazy to think that we're in July and summer is in full swing, but I hope if you are having summer in the Northern Hemisphere with me that you're having a wonderful summer season. Otherwise, I hope you're having a wonderful whatever season wherever you are. I think it's winter in the Southern Hemisphere now, I guess. But yeah, like always, thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now. I'm like trying to film and my MacBook is like blinding me. Gosh, the sun is so intense today. Whew.